I want to talk to you about your earliest memories of fashion. You were born in Serbia, or Yugoslavia as it was known then. How did you first become aware of fashion? How did you first become interested in fashion?
I think it goes really long way back, even when I was like a little girl and when I didn't even know what fashion designer is and what the clothes is. But I can really remember really vividly, for example, getting dolls as a present and just hating their hair, hating their dresses, wanting to cut them up, and it might have sounded quite violent at the time, but all of my poor dolls ended up with changed hairstyles and kind of ripped up dresses and some funny customization. And as I said at the time, to me that was just a game and a play, but obviously it's something that I was gravitating towards since the early age. And then it all continued when I started school. We had to obviously wear uniforms, and they were very boring, almost in the same color, blue. And boys and girls, we were all dressed the same. And I hated those uniforms, and also I wanted to kind of customize them as much as I could because you were not allowed, obviously. So I remember changing the buttons into bright red and doing like a top stitching and putting like a little badges, just as much as I could to kind of make it slightly different. And again, it's not something that I was aware of. It's not something that I thought I'm going to be fashion designers, but obviously all those little details in my childhood were showing that it's something that I love from early age.
Did there come a point where you did start to think that you wanted to study fashion and pursue fashion as a career? When did that come?
Yes, that happened quite early again. Because Serbia is a country that there is not many fashion designers, that there is not a big need for fashion designers as well. So fashion designer as an occupation wasn't really serious or wasn't really a prospect for me back home. So it was something that I really, really loved, but sadly I thought I will never be one because, as I said, there were not many reasons why I would study fashion back home. So funny enough, I enrolled myself into architecture and started to study architecture, and then kind of realized that I really feel that I'm lacking something in my life, and that, you know, instead of buying architecture magazines, I would end up going to shops and buying Vogues and Face and ID and kind of really reading from, you know, cover to cover every single story, while, you know, when it came back to fashion magazines, I would just kind of flick through and think, okay, I see enough. So then I actually started to study both at the same time, because luckily they were close to each other, so I could physically be present kind of, you know, in both colleges. But it was really, really hard and almost like impossible. And then I just decided that the only way is to come to London, and the only way is to come somewhere where it's really beginning of all ideas. It's almost like a melting pot, not just for fashion, but for art and for all creative things. And that was really inspired me to kind of start exploring which colleges would be the best and where I should go.
I'm interested by what you were saying about fashion in Serbia, and you said how fashion just wasn't an option. Did you not find any sort of artistic inspiration around you there? Do you ever still look back to Serbia and draw any inspiration from it?
Of course, Serbia is a beautiful country and has so much inspirations to offer, and I'm still, all of my collections and all my style is influenced by my country. It's just, as I said, unfortunately at the time we were living in a and I think that even today, you know, if you want to be on the top and forefront of fashion, you have to live in the towns that are driving the ideas, rather than living in the towns that are getting later those ideas and maybe developing them, but not necessarily making them. And I think that you know, Serbia has so much of a folk, incredible folk culture, then, you know, incredible artists, incredible passion for poetry and things that are otherworldly and quite romantic in a way. And all of those things, you know, you can see references in my clothing still today. But as I said, to be a fashion designer in Serbia, and to kind of start up a house that would be relevant in a global terms. It wasn't really wasn't really a possibility.
Because when you were studying there, it was a very difficult time for the country, wasn't it? Do you think, did that impact on your desire to move to London and sort of go somewhere different?
Yes, the times were quite hard, and when people, there was obviously a war happening, and all the things that necessarily not as nice, and all of us that actually studied fashion made us think, where do we really belong? Because this is some sort of utopia, some sort of escapism into different, not just country, but completely different universe, because it really didn't belong. But again, that just proves how passionate we were about fashion, and how that was something that was really driving us and bringing lots of positive energy. I guess, it's something that gave me quite a lot of strength as well to do things when the times are not right, and to be able to design collections with the different circumstances as well.
I want to ask you about St. Martin's, because I'd read in a previous interview you'd done that you came across St. Martin's in the kind of magazines that you were reading while you were in Serbia. What was the point where you're like, oh, it has to be St. Martin's, I have to study there?
It was Louise Wilson, really, because again, as I said, we were like those little sponges reading everything in those magazines, and I think it was ID where there was a big article about St. Martin's and Louise. I don't think that Louise was as known as Louise Wilson as she is now. Obviously she was, but not for her notorious teaching techniques and the way we all love her even more for now. So I read those articles, and then I read that all those incredible designers actually came from the same college, and I thought, there must be some sort of link. So it must be Louise that is creating, that is driving something in those people to be so unique. And I thought I must come and meet her somehow. I just must come and see if somehow I can end up in that school. Although I must tell you, I really didn't have high expectations. I really thought I would just kind of come to London. If I'm lucky, I will meet her, and that will be the end of it. But luckily it wasn't.
So when you got to St. Martin's, when you started studying, was it like what you expected? Was it as wonderful? How did you find your time there?
It was really groundbreaking for me, and it was a big eye-opener as well, because I was taught in a very classical way, and when I studied my college back home, it was more like an art college. It was called Faculty of Applied Arts, and it actually combined history of art, fashion, costume design. So it was led in a different way, and all the tutors and all the parameters were quite kind of as you would expect in kind of like a classical college. And then I came obviously to London, and there was Louise with, openly saying, screaming, swearing. And there was, again, this incredible freedom that I immediately felt that I'm suddenly appreciated by her for all the unusual things, and for all the strange things, and for all the unique things that in some way I wasn't back home, because people wanted you to fit a little bit more back home. They wanted you to belong to a certain group or to a certain way of thinking, and I always felt that I'm a loner. I always felt that I don't belong anywhere, and suddenly when I came here, I realized that thing that I actually don't belong is something that makes me special, and that's what actually Louise made me realize as well, and many other things, obviously, because I guess when you come to St. Martin's, you're not sure, you're quite, unsure what you are, who you are, what do you want to take from that big wide world of fashion, and what do you want to make your signature. And I think St. Martin's teaches you to just kind of discover yourself, really, and to become strong in realizing what your strengths are.
You mentioned kind of there is this very distinct London aesthetic, and that's something that I think most designers working here do recognise. When you were at St Martin's, did you become aware of that? Sort of who were your contemporaries when you were studying there, and did you look at the work they were doing and sort of take elements from it into your own work?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously become very aware. I think it's really important that you are very well informed about everything that is happening around us, and you know, by being here you're much more involved and informed than, you know, when you're living somewhere abroad and just kind of reading a few magazines. So obviously I did become much more informed, but I don't think that I was necessarily influenced by those designers. I think that I was just influenced by the life in London itself, and something that you know, changed me by being here. So I think that that's mostly what influenced me, and also the desire to come up with the things that are different. So at the time, you know, when I was later picked up by Fashionista, I was one of the first designers to do dresses and to do on such scale, and to do dresses for cocktails and for evenings, and that was almost like in London something that nobody wanted to do. And as being as I am, as not wanting to belong to anything, I kind of thought, well, actually, I want to do dresses. You know, I want to do something that nobody else is doing. So it was kind of starting to belong to London, but kind of in my own way, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. I want to talk to you about that, because you like, being a woman, and women are clearly so central to your designs. And from my perspective, I think you're part of this kind of successful group of young designers, like people like Jonathan Saunders and Richard Nicole and Marios, who are all kind of happen to be male. It's a similar generation to you. Did you ever feel that? Did you ever feel that you were kind of one of the only women out there who was doing something for women in London? Was that something that occurred to you, or? Yes,
it did occur to me, because for a long time I was one of the rare women here in London from a kind of younger designer generation, and those names that you just mentioned are exactly kind of the people that kind of I was surrounded with. They're all really good friends, and I think what was exciting to be amongst them, I mean, one thing that I don't regret is actually starting, although I said earlier that it's a shame I didn't start my label earlier, but actually I'm very happy I didn't, because I ended up surrounded with those great designers like Jonathan, Richard Nicole, Marios, Christopher Kane, and we ended up almost kind of starting this big excitement about London, and somehow it seemed that everything started to happen, and that there were many of us that kind of somehow started down all labels at the same time, and then after us came all the others, and now it's such a big group of such exciting young names. But yes, at the time I was the only one, and I don't know, I really liked it, because obviously being the only woman with all those boys, it's a very nice thing. But at the same time, I think that in general my aesthetic is just kind of designing from a woman's perspective, and designing things that are really comfortable, that are really kind of answering all the needs of very busy life. That means that, you know, you're at work and you don't necessarily have a time to change, to go to party or somewhere, so you can wear that same dress that works both for day and for evening, and all those things that, I don't know, maybe boys didn't necessarily think about that quickly, you know, more kind of like a practical reasons. And I find that as a big as a big milestone in my work, that actually it's labeled that it's designed for women, with kind of thinking about women's needs. So
are there particular women from any genre, whether it's women that wear your clothes or women involved in any aspect of life, are there women that you do look at and you look up to, and who've sort of inspired your notion of what women can be?
Yeah, well, there are many women, old women that wore my clothes, to be honest with you. They became a big inspiration as well, and And now when I'm designing for my collections, I kind of, you know, have all of them in mind. So I'm having many women on my mind when I'm designing. My mom is a tremendous influence. She always was. She's a very strong, independent woman, very stylish as well. So she was somebody that you know, I kind of look up at quite a lot. Yes, I guess I can't kind of pinpoint one or two or just few particular women, but all those women in general, all the strong women.